Hi everybody. Are we live? Okay, that's good. That's perfect. I see there are some people here, so yeah, sorry for being a little bit not on time. Let me get my mic closer to me. Hopefully everything is well. For those of you who might not know me, I'm Alexandra. I play cash games, and yeah, me and Paul are I'm coaching in the FNC Poker under CFP. We're also going to launch a bootcamp soon. So yeah, and also doing these free weekly hand reviews, which if you didn't know, you can send hands for. You can do that by contacting us on Discord. And I think I might have effed something up here. Yes, I did. I'm sorry for this. Oops. What did I do? I'm yeah, very sorry for this. This was not part of the plan. Now should be almost fine. No. I hope I can edit this before it goes on our YouTube. Okay. Hi there, Maguska. Nice seeing you around. Okay, so these hands, usually I'm trying to go quite deep into the hands. These ones are actually not filtered. Someone sent me a whole session that didn't go very well. And yeah, I just filtered 4 hands. I think they are the biggest hands. And yeah, some of them might not be very interesting. Some of them might be interesting. And yeah, we're gonna see. We're going to skip through the ones that are quite standard. So here we go for a 4-bet that I think it's fine. We are also a bit deeper. I'm not sure if we're playing against a regular here or against a recreational, so maybe the way the hand goes will tell us later. Okay, for now we 4-bet. He calls. Board is king 9-4, which is obviously a great board for us. I would just go for a range bet here. I think you can use 40% as well as 33 or 25, but king high is usually such a good board for us that even for 40% we can still range bet it. Here that's what we used. He calls. There's another king, which again is great for us. The problem that might come up is that, well, now pretty much every king is on the board. We also block one. We also block stuff like ace queen or ace 9 of clubs if he has that and wants to call another bet. So it's gonna be quite difficult to get called here again, especially in practice. I think people might overfold this spot, but it's also not a spot where if we check and try to slow play, anything great is going to happen. This is not a texture that's going to be bluffed very frequently, so because of that, we still want to continue barreling ourselves. As for the size, I think this is fine. Yeah, we definitely, shoving is way too big. We could also go a bit smaller. Yeah, I think we can go a bit smaller and also bet stuff like queens, maybe jacks here sometimes. Yeah, I guess that would be the strategy here, to size down and bet some of your under pairs, because again, he doesn't have a lot of king x here, and if we have jacks or queens, we are mostly going to block some of that king x as well. And yeah, he's going to have some draws, he's going to have some 9x that are going, and under pairs that are going to be put in a tough spot. So I guess we'd like to use a smaller sizing with our range, but we can check that in the solver after we see what happens. And villain shoves, obviously never folding this. Okay. didn't expect this one. I don't think this is ever going to be a play. To me, it makes absolutely zero sense. So like you block of some bluffs, you don't really block any value, and then you're probably getting worse to fold and better to call. Um, yeah, especially if this is a recreational, I don't think I would fold anything better than this. So I'm not sure what he's doing. Is this value? Is this a bluff? But yeah, let's see what GTO Wizard thinks about this hand. If you're interested in purchasing the software, you can get a 10% discount by using our link in the description. So yeah, it's a very, very good, very useful software, very quick to analyze hands. Here it is. This is some older spot. Okay, so this was, let's assume we were against a regular and the ranges pre-flop are maybe close to decent for bad pot, cutter versus button. MP versus button it actually was, which might make the things a bit different. Yeah, I don't really like using this GTO Wizard ranges in my sims without changing them a little bit, because hijack button 4-bet, because you see a lot of weird 3-bets with stuff like king 8 and so on and so forth that in reality I don't think people do in position. Yeah, I wouldn't really 4-bet king 9 here like ever, or ace 8. The other ones look good. Sorry for taking so much time to create the solution. And I still haven't finished because I forgot what the board was. King 9 4. So yeah, I guess 40% will still be a bit too high. Actually, no. So why, if we can still bet range for 40, why do we pick a smaller size? So EV here is 71.2. $71.3. Yeah, okay, whatever. In game, I guess we used 40. Yeah, I guess against, I guess if we just, I guess in positions range is doing so bad here that if we increase our size, we pretty much don't really get called by that much stuff, and we are losing value with our value range. So we bet. You see, he's never supposed to raise. That makes sense considering how bad this board is for him. I think there was actually a flush draw possible. Yeah, the king was the same suit as the 4. Okay, and now we can actually continue betting some queens and jacks, but it's not going to happen all that frequently. Yeah, so yeah, in game, obviously we're going to bet. And never supposed to shove tens. I guess we were just playing against a recreational player there. Okay, as I said, not going to stay too much on these hands unless you, my dear viewers, have any questions about the hand or, the strategy in the spot. Otherwise, let's move back. So here, this is basically cutoff against button, and we call out of position the 3-bet with 9-10 suited. I think this is going to be fine, but I assume in higher rake environments, again, going to GTO Wizard just to check their ranges quick. I think this was played in a lower stake. The monkey ranges that I used were for 500 NL, and I think if we make the rake higher, it's going to start mixing. So interestingly, we see some 4-bet here with 10-9. I don't think I would do that super often. But yeah, we can actually start folding, and this is quite important, I think. So Maguska asks, in this situation on flop, we decide what size opponent call, not just standard 25%. Yeah, I mean, if you have reads on the opponent and you think, I think 25% is better because it forces him to call a bit more combos, and his range is so crushed and we have so much value that if we bet bigger, this is talking about the previous spot, right? So if we bet bigger, there we don't really get called enough, so we lose EV. But if we know we're playing against someone who's extremely stationy, we can bet bigger and get more value because this person is not going to fold enough. So yeah, if you have read and you think your opponent is stationy, then yeah, you can increase your size. Okay, so going back to this hand, we see 10-9 is calling, and board is ace. King 10-4. And let's solve it with AI because we don't really want those things with multiple sizings and a lot of things going on there. I don't think they're gonna be super accurate because no one plays like that, and I know I don't. So in position here, range bets, I think he might have used 1/3 in this sim instead of a quarter. So just for the sake of the concept, let's look what's happening here in the original sim when he's almost range betting. For a quarter, we fold 43% and raise 22, and let's see now how this changes if we force a 1/3 range bet. So the sizing is a bit bigger, therefore we don't get to call pretty much at all. But we see we mostly, as cutoff, are supposed to play a check raise or check fold strategy, which a lot of real opponents don't do, especially in lower stakes. Therefore, in position, we can just see bet much more often than we are supposed to and get away with it, and probably even exploit our opponent by doing so. Okay, anyway, I just realized we jumped into the solver pre-flop and didn't really check what's going on in the hand. So we check, villain bets 1/3, and we go for a check raise out of position, which I like. As you see in the sim, if we suspect a range bet here, we should go for a check raise very, very frequently. And this is something that you will see in the spots where our range is actually quite bad compared to his and we are out of position. The reason is we're going to have some hands that want to get protection from his random overs, that want to get some money in, but we're not really going to have hands that just want to call out of position on a bad board and face multiple bets. So it's like we kind of check raise and check fold because that helps with our equity realization. I hope that makes sense, but if it doesn't, feel free to ask questions and I can elaborate on it. Villain calls, turn is a 9, which is quite a good card for us. Of course, it's not great that now he can have Queen Jack, but yeah, we also have Queen Jack in our check raising range quite frequently. I think King 10, 10s, 9s here are all still good enough to bet, so yeah, I think going something like 40% of the pot would make sense just to keep it relatively geometric. Now, considering that it's also deeper, maybe we could make it a bit bigger, but nah, then the Aspiro on the river would be quite weird. So yeah, also there's the straight completing board. We want to be able to value bet thinner than a straight for sure. So I would go, yeah, something like 40%. I guess it's gonna be quite a common sizing in this situation. This is bigger though, and we face a shove. I'm actually not super happy in this spot. Like, maybe some of you think, we have to pay. I mean, yeah, I am quite happy because I also have a flash, but I'm definitely never folding. But it's not a spot where I'm like, yeah, he shoved. Because there is still quite a decent amount of queen jack in his range. If he ever 3-bets that offsuit, that's even worse. He will have some stuff like kings and tens, even though we block tens, so yeah, that's the other good thing. We block tens and nines, so it's gonna be quite difficult for him to have a set. And yeah, actually, the more I think about it, the happier I am, because he does have some queen jack, but it's going to be quite difficult for him to have many better hands. And I think it's quite common for people to just freak out and shove aces or ace king here. So yeah, I am actually quite happy in this spot, can't lie. And he did have aces. We win twice, and yeah, I think the hand is nicely played. I really like seeing the check raise here on the flop, and I think a lot of people wouldn't really find that. So plus for that, let's look here. We see it's actually a pure check raise, especially in the no lock sim. If he was range betting just a quarter, I don't think we would go so crazy with raises, just because we get better odds to call. But if he range bets to this size, yeah, then we go quite crazy. These ones have terrible blockers. I'll actually get to fold here, second pair. Quite interesting. What I wanted to look at here is what size we want to use on the turn. It's going to be a bit different here, because, yeah, the sim is a bit shorter. But not much, so yeah, I guess something like this would work. Let's see if we make it 150 big blinds deep. Or 125, does this change? I really hope I'm on the right panel. Okay, call, turn was a 9, and let's see what size we use now. Oh, sorry. Okay, so now if we are deeper because we want to get all the money in, we can actually go bigger, so I think it was a good play on the turn. We see though, as we get deeper, it seems like 10-9 kind of loses value and we can't bet nearly as often as we did before. And yeah, this kind of makes sense. Do you have any questions about this hand or strategy on this board? I'll just open the window because it's really hot in here. Maybe it's me. Okay. Let's move on. Aces. Hopefully we win this. Okay, 10-9 deuce. We face a half pot donk, and I mean, I'm not sure if we are against a recreational or not. I don't think for a regular would call super frequently with such a short stack in the big blind. So yeah, I think this is very likely a recreational player. But I think even against the regular, I would probably just raise this hand because there's so many 10x, there's so many 9x that could just bet here just because they don't want to face a bigger bet. And there are so many possible draws, so many gut shots, open-enders, flash draws. So yeah, I just want to, I think some people are going to think, I want to raise here because I want to get protection from flash draws or open-enders, but they don't really, oh, sorry, not showing the right one again. I'm a streaming noob. Okay, so yeah, we just open and we get called by these people. We see a flop of 10-9 deuce, and yeah, he donks and we decide to raise, which I think is, I was saying, is probably the only viable option. But yeah, I was explaining how we're not actually trying to get protection from draws because those draws are going to call anyway. So if we raise here and he has queen jack or jack 8, or if he has a flash draw, he's never going to fold that, right? So basically we're not protecting against it, but what we are trying to do is get value from all of those draws, and this value we are not going to be able to get it on later streets because of course his draw might get weaker, or we might get to the river and he's gonna miss. So yeah, we want to get as much value from those on the flop, especially when we are in position and we just have the option to check back on the worst cards. We face a call, turn is a 3, and at this point I think we have a mandatory value bet, and quite a big one I think we should go for. Because of the same reasons, all those draws are still available. Now there are even more draws available, and I think when that happens, not only there will be a bunch of cards in his range to get value from, but also he might perceive our range as being full of draws and start calling wider than he should, which is something that recreationals do. We go for a pot size, which I really like. And now this is the dream river, because if we were ever beat by something like 10-9, we beat that. So yeah, I think no question here, just shoving. Yeah, so judging by this hand, I think it's pretty obvious we're facing a recreational player. I think that call from the small blind is horrendous, even against the 2x open. But yeah, with this guy behind that can just shove at any point. Not great. Any questions about this? If there will be, we can get back to it. 6-5. One of my favorite hands in poker. If 6-5 and 5-4 suited, I'm not sure how professional that is. But yeah, I like them. So we open, we face a 3-bet from the big blind. I think this hand is going to be mostly a fold, but it is going to mix in some calls. And I think what's important here as well is knowing who big blind is, because if we're playing against someone who's very, very passive post-flop, maybe c-betting one and done quite frequently, or just checking very, very frequently when he has ace queen, ace king, then we are going to be able to realize much more equity post-flop, and even though a solver would say this hand is marginal, then it starts gaining some EV because of his passivity, we're going to realize more equity. But on the other hand, if we're facing this kind of nitty passive player, then he might just have a tighter range, so we might have less equity against that range. Still, you know, these are hands that are quite disguised, and against someone that doesn't really 3-bet enough, I think the advantage is that we're never going to be, or almost never going to be, dominated with this hand. So anyway, it's very, very close. I think mostly a fold, but there are factors that could turn this hand into a pure call. We face a half pot bet, which we are calling all the time. I wouldn't have raises on jack high boards. They are really not great for us, as we don't call ace jack offsuit, and they usually 3-bet it. From big blind, not as much, but they 3-bet other jack X that we don't have. We don't have the overpairs. which are very strong on this board, and yeah, we're pretty much crushed. So no reason to raise. And we see a dream turn. He goes for another half pot. We call, show off call. And villain has ace jack, which is going to be a value bet in this line for sure. Yeah, can't say can't say much more than that. I do expect some people to get a bit freaked out and not bet because they are scared of the 5 or of the flush, but I think that would be a mistake. Also, if you've ever studied mass database analysis like population tendencies and so on and so forth, you're going to see that these lower boards, I mean, Jack High is middling, but yeah, these ones where they have a lot of offsuit combos that miss are actually going to be overbluffed. And if that's the dynamic, some people just massively overcalling these lines, so it makes sense to go quite thin for value, I think. His play is just fine. Okay, we 3-bet King Jack, button calls, and we bet half pot on Jack 8 Jack. I think we can just go half pot range bet here. I would personally use 40%, I think, but half pot is fine. Turn is a deuce, bringing in the flush, and yeah, I think this is going to be quite an interesting spot. What we see when we are out of position, especially when we bet range on the flop and we don't really filter our range while our opponent does, we need to be quite careful on the turn and bet at a low frequency with our range, and also go for a smaller size, because a smaller size allows us to value bet combos that are not a flush. So I think this hand is going to mix. I think we might see a decent amount of checking. Actually, we unlock holes like under pairs, 9s, 10s, 9, 10, which is good for us, and we don't really block auto folds either, so hands that would bluff us if we check. So I actually think this hand would be still quite a high frequency bet, especially if we use a small size. But yeah, I don't think checking it sometimes would be a mistake. Okay, we check. I'm curious if that's a good play or not. Okay, so 1/3 bet, we call, reverse the 7, we check, he shoves, and I think the river is quite terrible because his most natural bluff, which is 9-10, is getting there now. But on the other hand, we unblock Queen 10, which will always be in his range as well. And I don't know, we're definitely not folding in this spot. It's just because we can split with value, right? Like, he could do this with Queen Jack and expect to get called from aces, so no way we fold. But so much stuff gets there. The flushes get there. He could still shove ace jack. He can still have eights. Again, all the flushes. 9-10 gets there as well. If he called with a random under pair like 7s with a spade, that gets there. I'm not really sure what is he bluffing here with. I mean, he would still call stuff like king queen with the spade on the flop. Ace queen might bluff, so yeah, I mean, definitely not folding. But it's feeling yeah, it feels a bit like a grim spot. Would have turned out really nice if the river was a blank. I don't think he just ends up checking that back. So okay, I think it's an interesting spot, this one. Let's see how it plays and make sure we are actually going to the solver. What was the board? What was the board again? Jack 8. Okay, so maybe range betting half pot is a bit too ambitious. Let's just leave it like this. So we bet. We see they're supposed to call pretty much everything. I'm not sure this is gonna happen. Maybe. Stevie says he would bet a small size we can get value from worse. What hand we talking about? The one with checks. Oh, yeah, so that's a good thought process in a way. Like we can definitely go for a small size and continue betting this hand. But the idea is that our general frequency with our range, because of how the ranges are constructed now, needs to be very low. So even though our hand wants to bet, we can't go betting every Jack X here, because our range can't really, like our whole range can't really sustain a high frequency betting. So what that means is that when we have to check a lot on a certain turn, we also have to check some value. So yeah, it's true for a lot of hands that we can bet small and get value from worst, but there are also other factors into play here. And I think before we look at our hand and think, okay, what does our hand want to do here, we need to first think, what does my range want to do here? Because sometimes we might figure out that, okay, it looks like a nice hand to bet, but we are actually supposed to check all of our range here. Or you might see a hand and think, okay, well, it might make a lot of sense to overbet this, but if you think of your whole range, most of your hands are just going to want to go for thin value. So what's happening then is that you're going to be playing quite face up, and in a lot of these lines, I think it does make sense to have some slow plays, because villains don't really expect you to slow play anything, and then they are going to be maybe much wider with calls on the rivers or bluffing more than they should or stuff like that. Of course, it depends on the spot or the opponent, but yeah, the idea is I think you should mix some combos. So yeah, we see you are right. We can actually go betting at a high frequency, but we also check sometimes. And button is not really supposed to bet here 10-9 of clubs, but he can bet the other combos. The reason for this is that our give ups on the turn are going to be bluffs are going to be clubs very frequently. We block auto bluffs. Fuck. These terms, man, these poker terms. We are going to block auto folds with missed backdoor straight draws, missed backdoor flush draws when we have clubs. So, yeah, as button, he shouldn't really bet here. I think he also used a bigger size, if I'm correct. No. Okay, quarter. And we see we are actually supposed to check shove here at a decent frequency, which I think might be one of my mistakes. I don't think I would find enough check shoves here. But the threshold for value to do that is... we can actually check shove and overpair. I'm not sure how good this would work in game, because I just think people massively overfold. Ah, okay, so it's not the shove, it's a small check raise. Okay, something that people don't really find. I think it will be quite worth looking into, but yeah, we don't really want to do that with King Jack. I guess it won't look very deep into what's happening here, but yeah, it's dominated by his Jack and flushes, and it's just gonna be a call. And then the river was a hateful 7. Mm, yeah, that's the problem with river. I do agree. So the way this spot works is that we first need to ask ourselves, do we have a bluff catcher or not? And the definition of a bluff catcher is you have a hand that only beats bluffs. So that is when we need to consider, is the sport under bluffed or over bluffed, that when we need to consider blockers and so on. But this spot here, yeah, we don't really have a bluff catcher because he is going to have, like, he is going to have Queen Jack, he is going to have Jack 10, and I think some people will go for it with those hands. And then he will have the King Queen offsuits. Like, we were playing here against a decent opponent. He is going to call stuff like Ace Queen, Ace King Queen on the flop, and he can turn those into a bluff. Queen 10 is just a very, very natural bluff. Remember, he just called a small c-bet on the flop, and then the turn went check. So I think this removes also a lot of his bluff combos. If we look a lot of his value combos, I don't think people check here flashes very frequently, or I don't know, 8s or stuff like that. So when we get to the river, no, actually he did bet the turn, sorry. But still, even like that, I still think there's gonna be enough bluffs. Like Queen 10, we can actually do a combo counting exercise. But I guess it would just take too long right now. But yeah, there are definitely enough bluffs because he will call the c-bet at a decent frequency with a lot of random cards, and then they do have the opportunity to bluff. And we also need to remember that when he bets the river, we only need to be good like 28-30% of the times to make a profitable bluff catch. So yes, we are going to lose very often, more often than we call, but we don't need to win that frequently to make it a profitable call, and I think he will find enough bluffs here. Again, King Queen with a spade, very easy to find. Queen 10, I think just these combos might probably be enough for the value he has. And yeah, because he was a capable opponent, I don't think it's gonna be that unlikely for him to turn 5s into a bluff or something here. Anyway, any other questions? Or should we look at the next hand? So we flat small blind here with ace-5 suited, which I don't really understand. I think it should be a squeeze pretty much always. And I think the only reasons why we would like to go for a flat with this hand is if one of these people are going quite crazy with... So if one of them is a recreational that has quite a big loss rate, and also one of them is someone who 4-bets a lot, especially for big sizes, then I think it does make sense to call here, because this is a hand that, can make really good hands, plays decent multi-way, and has very good implied odds, can often stack a recreational, but on the other hand, we don't want to get 3-bet to 30 big blinds or 28 and be forced to fold or call or shove or whatever. So I think in that situation we'd rather just pay 2 big blinds and see a flop, but again, that is a very specific, particular situation. So, yeah, if these are regulars, for example, I think this call is quite horrendous. Anyway, let's see what happens. And this will be our next hand. Sorry, last hand, not next hand. um, yeah, this is our last hand. So before I go, I want to remind you that you can actually send your own hands to be reviewed on the stream. If you are curious in getting in touch about our training programs or anything else, feel free to join our Discord community. And let's see if we make or lose money in this hand. So, yeah, I don't think we should donk here. We have a very marginal hand. It's, yeah, just no reason to donk this one. Goes check, 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 and turn is an ace. Here, I think this spot is quite interesting because some of you might just see this and be like, oh, okay, I have a super cool value hand. I just wanna go for value, but in reality, we need to think about how the ranges are constructed. And usually the pre-flop raiser is going to have a huge advantage on an ace, so we shouldn't really bet that frequently. I think even close to, we might even have to close to range check this. So, that's what happens in theory, but in practice I think it makes even more sense because in position, pre-flop raisers tend to view this as a very good card for them and just start bluffing pretty much their whole range. So I think going for close to a range check here and then check raising big with our value hand and the bluffs is going to work really well. So that's, yeah, the strategy that I would advise for here. But half pot calls, yeah, I would just go for a pure check raise. And I like seeing this big size, I think that's nice. And we face a click and a fold. And like, again, I'm not extremely happy here, but I'm happy. Does it make sense? I mean, seeing a bet, then making a huge check raise three-way, and then a snap click doesn't really ever look like a bluff to me. And I think it's possible he has ace-10, ace-6, and we don't really beat almost any value hand that takes this line. But if the guy was, and I think it was, a recreational, he can just, be scared of flush draws and do this with ace-king, thinking it's the nuts and wanting to get it in, or ace-queen. And also when we are bid, we still have some equity with full house outs and flush draw out, flush out. So yeah, we are getting it in, but it's a bit grim. Da-da-da-da. Wah, wah, wah. Okay, so we lost the hand, apparently. We lost some viewers as well. For the ones who are still here, I really hope you enjoyed the session, and I will see you in the future ones. Bye bye!